A brand new study on intermittent fasting says it's not good for weight loss. Find out the details here today on Jimmy Rants. Click on that little box down there in the corner. It'll take you straight to IGTV for today's episode. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, you can engage live in the content. Go follow me. I'm over on Instagram. I am at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, we are live Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, so be sure to be here right here on Jimmy Rants. We also simulcast live over here on my Facebook page, where I see Judy just popped her head in. Hello, Judy, and everybody else watching on Facebook today. And my friend Shirley over on YouTube just said hello as well. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you miss a live, you can watch it on replay. We do put it up on replay right here on Instagram on IGTV. Just as soon as this episode is over, we stick it right up onto IGTV. So go check it out. We also put the past episodes up over on YouTube, where Abel James just said, yo. And so go check those out. Type in the keyword Jimmy Rants. You will find the show. Today is Thursday, so I have a show called Real Talk that airs on Thursdays at llvlc.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. And my guest today, you guys, is this gentleman named Sean Wells. He's a registered dietitian who's into ketogenic diets. He's an ingredients specialist. And so go check out, we have that as a Jimmy Rants bonus episode over on YouTube today. And of course, you can listen to it on the podcast when it airs later today. And then finally, the official website for this show is jimmyrants.com. While you're there, see all the past episodes. And if you're inclined to support my work, I work very hard to bring you an entertaining and educational show on a daily basis. So if you find value in that and you're able to help, then be sure to pop over there, click on the Patreon link for a monthly donation or a one-time donation with the PayPal link. And again, all those links are at jimmyrants.com. My two cats are staring each other down and they're doing the whole hissing at each other. Can you guys please behave? Now one of them's growling. I'm going to throw something at one of you if you don't break it up. There you go. That's a good girl. Literally at the start of Jimmy Rants, they always pull this crap. Like 3 minutes before I got on the air, Skunk, my younger one, threw up on my hardwood floor over here. So I'm like scrambling on Jimmy Rant Studio with like some natural spray to get it up in you. Anyway, the joys of having furry friends. Okay, let's get to what we're going to talk about here today. Not talking about cats throwing up and fighting. No, we have much more controversial things to talk about than that. As you guys know, fasting is kind of on a lot of people's minds now. And it's a funny little thing, fasting as a subject, because it's really not tied to any particular diet plan. Think about it. Fasting is literally not eating. It's the anti-diet. It's the agnostic, supplement to literally any diet. Now, naturally, if you eat a ketogenic diet, you eat a real foods-based diet, paleo, carnivore type of diet, fasting tends to be a little bit easier than if you're eating a high-carb diet, a low-fat diet, and that kind of thing. But fasting has been so popular, and back in 2015, I was very honored to share the stage in Cape Town, South Africa, with some of the leading experts in the world on ketogenic diets and healthy living. Professor Tim Noakes put this whole conference together, had Dr. and Jimmy Moore. So that was kind of fun. I was I think I was the only lay person that actually spoke from the main stage. So it was an honor. It was a privilege and awesome to kind of meet all these people. But before that event, I had never heard of Dr. Jason Fung. Now, everybody today knows Dr. Jason Fung. He's done some seminal work when it comes to fasting. But I remember he was talking about fasting from the main stage, talking about seeing all these wonderful patients that he had, having all this success, going on various protocols related to fasting. And I remember going up to him afterwards and like, is there a resource out there about fasting that you love? And he's like, not really. I said, want to write one together? So that's how this book came into being. So that was 2015. We met, something like July 2015 is when we met. and we started hatching a plan. I went to my publisher and I said, hey, I want to write a book with a medical doctor on fasting. And they didn't even hesitate. They could already see the tea leaves that this would be something that would be of interest. And so we wrote that book, came out in 2016, went on to become a Wall Street Journal bestseller, an international bestseller. It also did very well in Canada. Obviously, that's where Dr. Fung is from. It's just done really well. And to this day, this is the book that probably I get the most royalties off of still, even more than Keto Clarity now. So people are interested in fasting. So what's been fascinating about watching all of the interest in fasting is how the mainstream media has treated it. Now, we've seen some pretty positive coverage about fasting and some not so positive coverage. But now it's starting to go into the research realm. And I have a study, you guys, that literally just came out. I went to the good old search yesterday and was kind of scrolling, and I came across this brand new study. And I have a copy of the study here. Was published in the journal JAMA Internal Medicine, September 28th. So literally just came out on Monday. And JAMA is a big journal. So that's the Journal of the American Medical Association, and it's the one specialized to internal medicine. This is a highly respectable journal, but I'm about to go over this study that I think has so many flaws in it. I don't know how a layperson like myself, now I'm very educated about fasting, so I'm a little more than just a layperson in this subject matter, but still, I don't have a PhD or any kind of research credentials or any medical credentials, and I can see the basic flaws in what they did here. So I do have an overview of the study. This is the little press release overview. I'm going to read that first, and then we'll get into the study itself. So yes, if you just joined us, we're going over a brand new study, just came out on Monday here in September 2020, or I guess now it's October 1st now, but a couple of days ago came out. UCSF, University of California, San Francisco, did the study, intermittent fasting, and they found it doesn't really do a whole lot for weight loss. And my contention is that misses the point of fasting. So we'll get to that in just a minute. The current popular diet of intermittent fasting that restricts eating to 8 hours a day, separated by 16 hours of fasting, is not effective on its own as a means of either losing weight or for improving key metabolic health markers, according to a new study led by researchers at UC San Francisco. All right, let's stop. Who died and made them the definers of intermittent fasting? The definition of intermittent fasting is not fasting for 16 hours and having an eating window of 8 hours. That is one form of intermittent fasting we call 16-8. It's a very popular form. A lot of people naturally fall into it, where they eat from noon until 8 o'clock, and then they fast from 8 o'clock until noon the next day. Or you can fill your windows in whatever times you want, but that's the example. That's not the only thing that constitutes intermittent fasting. You've got people that also do 18-6, where they fast for 18 hours and eat within a 6-hour window. You have people that do 24. You have these people that do this thing called OMAD, one meal a day. And even intermittent fasting could be defined as up to about 36 hours, which is a day and a half worth of not eating. So I disagree with their premise at the very beginning that intermittent fasting is solely defined as restricting your eating to just an 8-hour window. That is one way to do it, but it's not the only way to do it, okay? While time-restricted feeding has been shown to prevent weight gain in mice on a high-fat diet and reduces weight and metabolic outcomes in already obese mice, most of the reported benefits of fasting in humans has limited scientific testing. Well, that's true, but it's only because of the bias. A lot of researchers won't touch fasting because they think it's harming the patient. They think it's starvation, which Dr. Fung and I in our book very clearly defined what starvation is, what fasting is, just very quickly. When you're starving, you don't have access to food, even though you want food, but you can't have food, thus you're starving. When you are fasting, you have readily available food, but you're choosing, for the sake of your health, not to eat for a period of time. But if things get awry and you need food, the food's there and you can break the fast at any time. That is the difference between starvation and fasting. So in their study, they included 116 men and women who had a BMI of 27 to 46. So they had a wide range of people that were more metabolically healthy, at least according to their BMI, to ones that were very not metabolically healthy. They found that people who were randomly assigned to only eat during an 8-hour period each lost 2 pounds on average over the 12-week period. So 12 weeks is 3 months, and they lost on average 2 pounds, while those with consistent meals lost an average of 1.5 pounds. Okay, and that doesn't tell the whole story. And we'll get into the nitty-gritty of things here in a minute. But just looking at the conclusion here, the 8-hour fasting window, they eat 2 pounds, eating period, they lost 2 pounds. What did they eat in that 8-hour eating period? We're going to find out here in a minute. That matters. You can't do an intermittent fasting study and have them just eat garbage in the eating window. You can get a lot of benefits from eating whatever in that eating window if you're fasting for 16 hours, because the point of an intermittent fast is that time you're not putting food in your mouth. And it's in that time you're not putting food in your mouth where the magic of intermittent fasting happens. And so we don't know, did they eat junk food in the 8 hours? The fact that they still lost 2 pounds, that means that 16 hours did pretty good. And again, with the consistent meals, what did they eat? And did they eat isocaloric? Did they eat the same things in the two groups? We're going to find that out here, hopefully in a minute as well. So the study found there was no significant difference over the 12-week period between the two groups in the total weight loss, or as other markers like fat mass loss, lean mass, fasting insulin or glucose, A1C, energy intake, or total or resting energy expenditure. So the researchers were Dylan Lowe and corresponding author Ethan J. Weiss. Both are affiliated with the UCSF Cardiovascular Research Institute, and they were published in September 28, 2020 issue of JAMA Internal Medicine. So I got my grubby hands on that study. And if you're just joining us, I'm going to go over this brand new study. Literally just got published 2 days ago. I tell you guys here on Jimmy Rants, I keep you on the cutting edge of what's coming out in the research realm as it relates to nutritional health, because this stuff matters. And especially when it's a misleading study, the study's concluding that the intermittent fasting is really no better than just consistent eating for weight loss. And I claim that it misses the point of what intermittent fasting is. So let's get into this. So the question they tried to answer in this study: what is the effect of time-restricted eating, also known as intermittent fasting, on weight loss and metabolic health in patients with overweight and obesity? The title of the study is The Effects of Time-Restricted Eating on Weight Loss and Other Metabolic Parameters in Women and Men with Overweight and Obesity. They're calling it the TREAT, T-R-E-A-T. We'll find out what that means here in a minute. Randomized clinical trial. So it was a randomized trial, which I do like those better. The RCTs are the gold standard when it comes to research. So in this prospective randomized clinical trial included 116 adults, as we noted. Time-restricted eating was associated with a modest decrease, 1.17% of their weight. That was not statistically different from the decrease in the control group, where they kept eating, 0.75% of their weight. Time-restricted eating did not confer a weight loss or cardiometabolic benefit in this study, and that was the meaning. Let me stop for a second. If their purpose in testing time-restricted eating was weight loss, why wouldn't you want to take a look at not just 16.8, but 24-hour fasts, which would be the whole OMAD, which would be like 23 hours and then 1 hour eating window, and then you fast again. And then a 36-hour, and compare the various kinds of intermittent fasting. Because I would make the argument that a 16-8 intermittent fasting protocol, the primary objective and outcome of that kind of fasting is not ever weight loss. Can you lose weight doing that? Of course. But I think the weight loss is an indirect marker of the good things happening in lowering of insulin, lowering of blood sugar, basically giving your pancreas a break, lowering of inflammation levels during that time. But it's not in and of itself that fasting that's causing the weight loss. It's all those other markers getting better because of the intermittent fasting. And maybe because you're healing the body, 12 weeks isn't long enough to see that kind of lasting weight loss. If they wanted to test weight loss, why didn't they push it a little longer? Why didn't we see OMAD tested? Why didn't we see even some extended fasting, maybe a 48-hour fast, maybe a 72-hour fast? And you and I both know why. They don't think it's healthy to be fasting for that long. And so, ethically, we can't really have them. We're worried about them fasting for 16 hours. Oh my God, what would happen if they get to 17 hours of fasting? And they're just like sabotaging the results before they even do the study. And that's the problem with these kinds of studies, you guys. It's an incomplete picture. And yet headlines all over talk about time-restricted eating doesn't work for weight loss. And I would argue that's not the point of time-restricted eating. If you want to lose weight and do a fasting protocol, it's so funny, people often say, Jimmy, so can you lose weight fasting? I'm like, you're not eating for a period of time. And then you start eating again. What part of that doesn't make sense that you would obviously lose weight? And see, here it is. They did lose weight in the study. Not to the degree that they, I guess, they thought it was going to be just enormous. But I guarantee you, if they did longer intermittent fasting, or if they did even extended fasting, they would see quite a different story. So let's see what they did do in the study, and I think it's going to give us a clue as to why the results were not as good as they could have been. All right, so the abstract. Importance. The efficacy and safety of time-restricted eating has not been explored in large randomized clinical trials. The efficacy and safety. So they talk about the efficacy. They don't say anything about safety. Guys, not eating food for a period of time when you are in control and you are allowing your body to fast has incredible safety. Like, people worry, am I going to develop an eating disorder if I don't eat for a period of time? I'm like, no, you might cure one. Binge eating is notoriously bad for people's health. And the opposite of binge eating is fasting. And if you can do it, obviously, if you have an active eating disorder, please do not go on a fast. You're one of the groups of people that should never fast until you get your eating disorder under control. Pregnant women's the other one. If you've got a bad relationship with food, some kind of mental things, you might want to work through that first. Certain children should probably avoid fasting as well. So there's different groups. And we talk about that again in my book, The Complete Guide to Fasting with Dr. Fung. All the different groups who should not fast. The objective was to determine the effect of a 16-8 time-restricted eating window on weight loss and various metabolic risk markers. Participants were randomized such that the consistent meal timing group, they call them CMT, was instructed to eat 3 structured meals per day, and the time-restricted eating, which was the intermittent fasting group, they were instructed to eat ad libitum. In other words, they could have as much as they wanted from 12 noon until 8 o'clock, and then completely abstain from calories from 8 until 12 p.m. the following day. So, did you get that? They randomized them to 3 structured meals with specific calorie amounts for the ones that were the control group, consistent meal, and then the time restricted, the intermittent fasting, eat whatever they want, however much they want from 12 to 8. All right, so this was a 12-week randomized clinical trial, including both men and women between the ages of 18 to 64. So they got a wide variety, not just of body mass index, but also ages, 18 to 64. Their BMI, which was calculated as weight in kilos divided by the height in meters of the reference range there, 27 to 43. They were conducted on a custom mobile study application. Participants got a Bluetooth scale from the researchers. They lived all over the U.S. They had a subset of 50 of the participants that lived near San Francisco who did in-person testing. The primary outcome they were looking for in this study was weight loss. Secondary outcomes from the in-person cohort included changes in weight, fat mass, lean mass, fasting insulin, fasting glucose, HbA1c, how much energy they took in, the calorie intake, total energy expenditure, how many calories they burned, and resting energy expenditure. So what were the results? Overall, 116 participants. They had an average age of 46 and a half. There were 70 men of the 116 participants. It was a significant decrease in the time-restricted eating, in weight, but no change from what the CMT group found. In the in-person cohort, which had 25 people in each of the groups, there was a significant within-group decrease in the time-restricted eating, 1.7 kilos, and there was also a significant difference in lean mass index between the groups, down 0.16, but there were no other significant changes in any of the secondary outcomes between the groups, no difference in their energy intake. So their conclusion in this study, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty, time-restricted eating in the absence of other interventions is not more effective in weight loss than eating throughout the day. So let me give a little commentary here. Nowhere in there did I hear what they did eat. And can I tell you, if you are intermittent fasting and you're just willy-nilly putting any old food in your mouth that you want, you're basically negating the effects that could come from that intermittent fasting. I think one of the best strategies people could do if you're trying to produce weight loss, which is fat loss, which is maintaining of your muscle mass and all the things that they measured in this study, if you want to maximize it, and what they should have done for this study was have them eat a ketogenic diet first, get fully keto adapted within like a 4 to 6 week period. Once you're keto adapted, then watch what happens. People just naturally fast for 16 hours. It's not hard at all. And I think they missed the point here, because you can have people intermittent fast for 16 hours, but they're going to grit through it if they're not totally keto adapted. But if you're keto adapted, how many of you, and most of you that watch Jimmy Rants, are keto adapted? You eat a carnivore diet, paleo diet, keto diet, low carb diet. How many of you can extremely easily fast for at least 16 hours? I think almost every one of us that has been doing this a while, and you're eating ample amounts of food in your meals. That's the clue, by the way. If you can't go at least 10, 12 hours between meals, you're not eating enough food in the meals that you are eating. This is where people get sabotaged. And I do love the part of their study where they let the study participants eat ad libitum. They're like, eat to your heart's content, but only within that 8-hour period. 16 hours, you can't have it. Now, I didn't see anything about drinking coffee. I didn't see anything about having other liquids. Didn't see anything about bulletproof coffee in that period of time that they were fasting. Would be interesting to know. Hopefully, when we get in the nitty-gritty of what they ate, hopefully they show that. But if they don't, guys, that matters. It matters, and it misses the point. This whole study and the big splash headline, the intermittent fasting leads to no weight loss. It misses the point if they didn't eat keto. It misses the point if they're undoing all the good that fasting period did. And here's the way you need to think about it. When you are eating crappy food, you're basically filling your tank, okay? And then when you're not eating food, you're emptying that tank. It's a little rudimentary to think of it in that way. But when you're eating keto. You're getting the energy you need, you're getting the intake of food to live your life, but you're not filling up that tank. It's basically staying the same. But then you add in periods of fasting and then it goes down. I would have loved to have seen them do the same study, except have a third wing, and instead of having them eat ad libitum whatever they want, why don't they eat ad libitum of all the animal foods and non-starchy vegetables that they wanted? How cool would that have been as a third cohort? And I bet 12 weeks would have easily lost more than 2 pounds. Easily. And a lot of these guys, the BMI showed they had a ton of weight to lose. This would have been an easy slam dunk to show, and the headline would be, intermittent fasting combined with keto is pretty damn awesome for weight loss. They didn't do that. All right, so let's look at what they did do. Introduction. The prevalence of overweight and obesity has increased dramatically recently and is associated with an increased risk for chronic disease. Even modest weight reduction can improve cardiovascular disease risk. However, long-term adherence to lifestyle changes are difficult. No, they're not. If you find the right one, they're not difficult. I always hate it. Oh, long-term changes in your diet is just so difficult. That's why nobody ever... No, if you keep telling people it's difficult, guess what? It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because people don't even try because it's difficult. How do they not see the psychology of that? If you tell people over and over and over again that something is difficult, and it's not really difficult, but you tell them it's difficult, what are they going to believe? They're going to believe it's difficult. So if you stop telling people it's difficult, guess what? They stop believing it's difficult, and then they finally give it a go. Therefore, it is important to find novel lifestyle modification interventions that are effective in reducing your weight and accessible and straightforward to enhance adherence. Intermittent fasting has gained attention as a simple weight loss method. No, it hasn't. Intermittent fasting has never been about weight loss. Can we say that loud and clear? I know we have a chapter in the Complete Guide to Fasting all about using fasting for weight loss, but it's not the primary thing. Fasting does some incredible things in the body that have nothing at all to do with your weight, at least not directly. Indirectly, these things, all of these things have to do with your weight. It normalizes your hormones, brings down insulin levels, brings down blood sugar levels, allows the body to relax, not have to work so much. Those people that eat every few hours, they're constantly pumping insulin, and their pancreas never gets a break. Intermittent fasting gives you that opportunity to give your body a break. It lowers inflammation levels. It boosts growth hormone levels. It does so many really intricate things in the body metabolically. Weight loss is not even on the radar screen, but they want to make it as a primary outcome, this weight loss as a primary outcome in this study. I don't think it should have been the primary outcome ever. Not in an intermittent fasting study. The best way to use fasting for weight loss is to do extended fasting over a period of time. So if you decide to fast for 5 to 7 days, you're going to lose a modicum of weight. Let's just guess 10 pounds. You'll gain back 7 of that when you start eating again, but you kept off cumulatively 3 pounds. So then you wait about a month and then you do another 5 to 7 day fast. You lose another 10 pounds. You gain back another 7 pounds, but you cumulatively lose 3 more pounds. Now that's 6 pounds in 2 months. You see what I'm saying? If the purpose of the fasting was weight loss, they studied the wrong thing. Intermittent fasting's primary outcome is not weight loss. That's why this study from UCSF missed the friggin' point. Couldn't they have just called one of the authors of the best-selling book on fasting and we could have easily told them this? Trust me, guys, I would love to design a study and say, okay, here's the study design, go. But they never asked me. They never asked Dr. Funk. They're not interested in actually testing intermittent fasting. They're interested in discrediting it because it's getting so much popularity out there in the mainstream. Let's not kid ourselves. Intermittent fasting refers to eating windows separated by defined periods, at least 12 hours and up to 48 hours. That's how they define intermittent fasting. Well, they define it as or at least 12 hours, up to 48 hours. Why did they settle on 16? 16 is exactly 1/3 of 48 hours. Why didn't they do a 16, a 24, a 36, and a 48? All wings within the same study. Keep everything else constant with what you did in the study, and then what they would have found is, oh, the longer you extend your fast, the better the weight loss outcomes are. Crazy. Most of the reported benefits of intermittent fasting are either untested or under-tested in humans. Again, they haven't had the will to test it for very long. Time-restricted eating is a specific IF protocol involving consistent fasting and eating periods, all within a 24-hour cycle. Time-restricted feeding prevents weight gain in mice challenged with an isocaloric high-fat diet and reduces weight and metabolic outcomes in already obese mice. So they're citing the previous research in animal models that are the basis for the theory as to why they tested it in humans. Weight loss without a decrease in calories suggests that TRF, time-restricted feeding, could affect energy expenditure to achieve a negative calorie balance. I don't think it has anything to do with the calories at all. They always want to focus on the calories. To me, fasting is not about lowering your calories. Does it? Yeah, I guess to a certain degree, naturally it lowers calories. I wouldn't say it lowers calories. I think it normalizes calories. When you're constantly feeding the beast, you're kind of allowing calories in and extra energy possibly to blow by satiety signals. But the interesting thing and the ironic thing about fasting, you guys, when you're in the midst of a fast, is when you're the least hungry, when you're the least wanting to put food in your mouth, especially when you're keto adapted. Let me give that caveat. If you're a high carb eater and you try to do 16 hours of fasting, it's going to be miserable. But if you're somebody who's very well fat adapted, you're used to going long periods of time between eating, which is the hallmark of eating a ketogenic diet, fasting is just a part of what it is. Most of us that eat keto or carnivore, we eat what? 1, maybe 2 meals a day. I literally stick to that regimen, not because I'm forcing it, but because that's what I fall into. So in the morning time, this morning I had 2 ribeye steaks. That was my breakfast. And somewhere around 4 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock, I will have 8 eggs cooked in butter, and that will be my meals for the day. I eat carnivore, and so that kind of fills me up. And I just eat those 2 meals, and I'm happy as a clam. And I love it. That's just the way I fall into. Prior studies in humans with overweight and obesity demonstrate that time-restricted eating can result in a reduced calorie intake and is associated with a decrease in body mass and fat mass. Again, I will argue it's not the decrease in calories that's causing that, but the normalization of the hormones that is doing that. We conducted, in this study that I'm reading from, a randomized clinical trial designed to determine the effect of time-restricted eating on weight, as well as comprehensive metabolic outcomes in overweight and obese patients. We hypothesized that the 8-hour time-restricted eating prescribed to individuals overweight and obese would lead to weight loss and improvements in the various metabolic markers compared with individuals following a standard 3 meals a day diet, consistent meal timing. So again, they came up with this 16 hours as the thing they wanted to test. I wonder what made them focus on that. They literally admitted earlier in the paper that fasting can be as short as 12 hours. Why didn't they test 12 hours? Intermittent fasting could be as high as 48 hours. So why didn't they test 48 hours? Why did they pick 16? And if you're going to pick an extreme between those two positions, if 12 hours is the minimum and 48 hours is the maximum, why didn't you go for 24 hours, 32 hours? They could have easily kind of found a medium, but they went on the lower end of it, extremely lower end of it, just 4 more hours than the minimum of what would qualify as intermittent fasting. Why would they not want to actually test it and test it well? That's what kills me about these kinds of studies. It's almost like they were trying to get sabotage the effort of the intermittent fasting study long before it started. And if your primary outcome of a short intermittent fast, which is what 16 hours is, maybe to the mainstream of the public, 16 hours of fasting isn't short. But for those of us that are longtime fasters, 16 hours, I poop 16 hours. Like I can literally do that without any problem whatsoever. 24 hours is probably pretty easy as well. 36, I start to feel that a little bit, but I don't really feel fasting until I'm well beyond 36 hours. And then in that day 2, when I'm doing kind of an extended fast, is when you start to kind of go, okay, I feel it. Okay, we're going to get beyond this, and you get beyond that, and then you're able to get the other side of that, get day 3, 4, 5, and then you're off to the races for however long you're going to be on the fast. But they didn't want to test any of that. They wanted to test 16 hours. Seems so arbitrary. And I would love to know their thinking as to what made them fall onto 16 and not to 24, not to 32, not to some other protocol within the parameters of their own definition of intermittent fasting. Okay, so let's get into the experimental model and the participant details. This study was conducted with approval from the Institutional Review Board at the University of California, San Francisco, as well as the University of Hawaii Cancer Center. The trial protocol was a clinical trial registered at clinicaltrials.gov, so this was a very legit study. Participants were recruited between August of 2018 and June of 2019. They completed the data collection in October 2019, so 1 year ago is when they completed this. Overall, 141 participants were enrolled in the study, and they randomized them. So if you're not familiar with terminology and research, randomized is where they literally just say, we're blind, we don't know who you are, but we're just going to put you in different categories. So that way it's truly unbiased as to what the outcomes will be. They randomized 25 participants for whom they never got any data. So in other words, 25 of those participants signed up to be a part of the study, but then they never turned in any of the data. Data was collected from a total of 116 participants. 105 of those people completed the 12-week protocol. The study was conducted on a custom mobile study app on the Eureka research platform. If you've never been a part of a study on a research platform, it's pretty cool, these apps. I got to participate in one with the Oura Ring related to COVID-19 this year. It was about 6 months I was in that study, basically giving them my temperature and thing every day. But every single day I went on, and that one was a UCSF study. So I guess they have the sophistication with all the tech companies out there on the West Coast to do these kinds of apps like that to make it very easy to participate in studies. Participants received study surveys through the study app. They were given a Bluetooth weight scale that they could use daily, which was connected through the app. They were randomized to one of the 2 interventions. The study intervention only included recommendations to the timing of the food intake, no recommendations for calories and macronutrient intake or physical activity. In other words, however you want to eat, go for it. You want to eat all steaks because you're carnivore? Go for it. You want to eat all the junk food in the world? You're going to be the poster boy or girl for the standard American diet? Go for it. Are you a vegan? Go for it. Are you a bodybuilder? Go ahead and knock yourself out in the gym. Are you a cardio queen? Go ahead and do that. Are you a schlub that just sits on the couch and watches TV all day? Yeah, we don't care. Guys, all of those are considered confounding variables. How can you not control for those things? And if you don't control for those factors which have a direct impact on weight, how, pray tell, are you supposed to get any validity out of the conclusion of the study? Does this make sense? That they would have no recommendations for how many calories to eat, what macronutrient intake and ratios you should be eating, or any kind of physical activity? They basically said, yeah, we don't know and we don't care. Participants got daily reminders about their eating windows. So in other words, if they forgot, you can eat between 12 and 8, they'll get a push notification through the app that says, okay, go eat. The CMT group, that was the control group, was instructed to eat 3 structured meals per day. Snacking between meals was permitted. The time-restricted eating group was instructed to eat as much food as they want. Again, no instructions as to what to eat. Just whatever you want, however much you want. From 12 until 8, and completely abstain from calories from 8 until 12 the following day for the 16-8. Here's the thing. If these participants were not already familiar with fasting, intermittent fasting, would they know that you don't have to stuff your mouth in those 8 hours? Were they eating their food to satiety? Or were they thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not eating for 16 hours after the end of this window. Let me get in as much food as I can. And so they gorged themselves beyond satiety. That matters too. Guys, we know people play games with themselves like that. Like we used to pull this when we were going to start on a diet. What did you do the day before you started any diet? Before you found keto, carnivore, whatever you're doing? You ate crazy. You had the junkiest of junk food because this was the last time you were going to have that. And so I did it. When I started Atkins, the day before I started Atkins, I ate crazily. We all do that. So what would keep people in this 8 hours having that same mentality where I'm not going to be able to eat for 16 hours, so I better get it all in while I can? And little do they know, if they just ate fat and protein as the primary source of nutrition, minimize their carbohydrate, that 16 hours will be a breeze. But they didn't give them that instruction here. Only non-caloric beverages were permitted outside of the eating window. Well, this is a problem as well. Yes, non-caloric, but you know what that includes? Diet soda, energy drinks, other artificially sweetened drinks. And one of the things we hammered in the Complete Guide to Fasting is to be careful with sweeteners. Because sweeteners can stoke hunger, sweeteners can stoke insulin, sweeteners can be problematic when you're trying to fast. Now, I know some people, they do just fine. They drink diet soda, they do all the things when they're fasting, but others don't. And so they allowed them to have non-caloric beverages when they were in the fasting window. Again, if you do well with that, that's fine, but that's a saboteur. They didn't say anything in here about making sure they get ample amounts of salt and water. Nothing in there. Speaking of water, I've been talking a while. Let me drink. Water and salt is the magic elixir when you are fasting. Even as short as 16 hours, it would be helpful to do that. But they didn't give them that instruction. All the participants provided consent through the app. And for participating in the study, guess what they got for being in this study? Over the 12 weeks, they got a $50 Visa gift card. That's not even $5 a week. Cheap, you know what? All the participants received this thing called an iHealth Lite Bluetooth scale, the model number HS4S, that they could use at home. Participant accounts were linked to the Eureka research platform. They were instructed to use the scale daily in the morning before eating and drinking and prior to structured physical activity. That's the other thing. It's like, okay, when did they test? So they were instructed to use the scale in the morning before eating and drinking. Well, if they fasted from noon until 8, then their last meal was very late at night. And unless they went to bed at midnight, which you need kind of 4 hours after your last meal to get a good night's rest, if you didn't sleep well and then you wake up the next morning, you're going to be a little bit bloated, your hormones are going to be a little bit off. I don't think they weighed them at the right time. The perfect time to weigh them would have been at the end of the 16 hours of fasting. Weigh them at that point, because ostensibly that would be the lowest weight they would be. And of course you can't confound it either by having these the liquid from drinking the water and things, or diet soda or whatever else they're drinking. Are you seeing some of the flaws? Like, guys, I read these studies and I kind of go, what? Like, what? In-person metabolic testing. Participants who lived within 60 miles of UCSF were eligible to undergo extensive in-person metabolic testing. The enrollment was capped at 50 people, so they put 25 of them in one group, 25 in the other group. They had a total of 46 of them complete all 4 of the in-person visits. All right, so they did a statistical analysis, and the primary outcome was change in weight from baseline, measured daily with those scales I was telling you about. Overall, it included 116 participants. The estimate to intention to treat effect of treatment assignment, they used a linear mixed model with fixed effects for treatment assignment. That's a little gobbledygook for research, but just know they're analyzing the data is basically what they're saying here. The treatment effect was estimated by the fitted group between group difference at day 90. So remember that it was a 3-month study. So that's at the end of the study. And they looked at the net of any differences from the baseline to the very end. In sensitivity analysis, they repeated all of the outliers, which was defined as points more than 1.5 times the various blah, blah, blah. That's just gobbledygook. Results. We already kind of went over these, but I'm going to see if there's anything more in depth in here. Self-reported adherence to the diets was 1,002 of 1088. That's the number of meals that were consumed amongst all the participants. In the control group, they never missed a single meal. There was 1,128 of 1,351, which was 83.5% in the time-restricted eating group. They ate only within that 8-hour window. Of the 141 participants, they had the ones come to their clinic. 46 of the 50 participated. All right, wait. Let's go to that one first. Since that was the primary outcome, there was a significant decrease in weight in the time-restricted eating, but it was no different, really statistically speaking, from the control group. So they said there was no significant difference in weight change between the groups. The in-person cohort, there was a significant decrease in weight in the time-restricted group using the in-person, which was 1.7 kilo, which is about 5 pounds, but not in the control group, which was about 0.57 kilo, and that one was about maybe 1 pound. So it was pretty different in the ones that did it in person. But when they did it as an aggregate of all of the study participants, statistically, they said there was no difference. But again, what you eat when you are in the eating window matters just as much as the fasting window itself. So is that more an indictment on intermittent fasting, that it's no good for weight loss? Or is it an indictment on, if you're going to intermittent fast, don't ruin it by eating junk food? The fact that there's no mention here at all of exactly what they ate is a confounding variable to end all confounding variables. If one group did very well losing weight and they ate mostly kind of a lower carb, animal-based foods diet, and then you had somebody else doing the same protocol and yet they were able to consume junk food, isn't that a confounding variable? Of course it is. But they didn't control for that. Body composition, they did DEXA scans. There was no change, no difference in change. Slightly more whole body fat mass loss with the intermittent fasting compared with the control. There was a significant decrease in lean mass on the time-restricted eating. They lost 1.10 kilograms of lean mass. That's your muscle. So they lost right around 2 grams of lean mass, or kilograms, or pounds. I'm going to get it out in a minute. 2 pounds worth of lean mass, which isn't a whole lot, but it's interesting. They lost more in the time-restricted eating. And of course, they'll blame that on, well, you're not eating, so fasting leaches muscle. It does not, by the way. The control group only lost 0.35 kilograms of lean mass, which is less than 1 pound. It's interesting to me that is telling that they did not eat keto. Because if they ate keto, not only would you not lose any lean mass, you would probably put on a little bit of lean mass, even if you did no exercise. Remember, they didn't even look to see if they did exercise. They didn't care. They didn't look to see how they ate. They didn't care. None of that. No calories. They didn't care how many calories you ate. They didn't care. But all of it matters, especially if the primary outcome is weight loss. Are you seeing the major flaws of this study? All right. Blood lipids, glucose, insulin, cardiometabolic health markers. There were no significant differences between all of these groups. No difference in the blood pressure. There was a significant decrease in blood pressure in the CMT, in the control group. They saw their blood pressure go down by 3.86 mm. So they didn't really account for why. There's so much all over the board here. Sleep quality, they tracked that as well. Activity tracker, there were no significant changes in sleep. They did wear the Oura ring, and they found significant changes in sleep efficiency, latency, and awake time in the intermittent fasting group. So they're trying to say that the fasting messed with their sleep. It does not. Maybe if you just start, especially 16 hours. I mean, come on. That is such a short period of time for it to be impacting your sleep. I think the fact that they had to eat within a 12 to 8 o'clock window, and then they tried to go to sleep probably around 10 o'clock, 9, 10 o'clock, so soon after their last meal, because you know they ate all the way to 8 o'clock. In order for it to be a true study, they had to eat within that 12 to 8. So they pushed the final meal to as close to that as possible. Well, we know that if you eat that close to bedtime, you're going to mess up your sleep. Invariably, I see that on the Oura data. If I sleep less than 4 hours, go to sleep less than 4 hours after my last meal, I'm struggling in my sleep. So that's not a surprise. Why didn't they make the time-restricted feeding window 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock? Then if they go to bed at 10 o'clock, then it's 4 hours after their last meal. That matters too. Yet another confounding variable in this so-called study. The Oura ring also revealed a significant reduction in daily movement in the time-restricted eating group. And between the groups, but not in the control group. So the control group actually moved more. I guess too, the group that had to fast were like, well, if I can't eat anything, I'm just gonna lay around. Oh, I'm gonna be so lacking energy. So indirectly, they didn't move the normal way they would move. And that makes a difference on the outcome of how much weight was lost as well. Are you seeing how they got to this intermittent fasting didn't really produce weight loss? They did everything to make sure that that was the outcome that would happen. Whether the researchers meant it to turn out that way or not, that's exactly why it's turned out this way. This is not a surprising result to me because they set it up to make it as minimally effective as they possibly could. All right, discussion. Time-restricted eating is attractive as a weight loss option in that it does not require any tedious time-consuming methods like calorie counting and adherence to diets that are complicated. Indeed, we found that self-reported adherence was high. So people liked time-restricted eating. However, in contrast to our hypothesis, remember they thought there was going to be significant weight loss, there was no greater weight loss with this compared with the control. In addition, we found among our secondary outcomes, there were very few differences between the groups, specifically none with fat mass, fasting insulin, glucose, A1C, blood lipids, and that was the ones they were looking at. Most humans eat throughout their waking hours. We set the 8-hour window and did not prescribe calorie or macronutrient guidance so as to offer a simple real-world recommendation to free-living individuals. We chose 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. because we reasoned that people would find it easier culturally to skip breakfast than dinner, a more social meal in most cultures. Well, I know a lot of people that are just the opposite. I'm one of those people. I like eating in the morning. So I wake up in the mornings and I, around 8 o'clock in the morning, like to have my breakfast meal. That's at 8 o'clock. And then in the afternoon, I like to have my meal at, say, 3:30, 4 o'clock. So indirectly, I am eating within an 8-hour window those 2 meals. And then I very comfortably eat because that gives me plenty of time before my bedtime, let all that food digest, I sleep well, get up the next morning, have that overnight fast. If most of the fasting window ends up being during your sleep time, then by the time you get to the eating window, it's very comfortable. They could have moved it a little better. And to assume that it's more social in the culture to have them eat from 12 to 8 is kind of silly. And it didn't really look at this over a long period of time. I'm hoping you're seeing in this Jimmy Rants today the many flaws that made this headline a ridiculous conclusion. Our results are consistent with a prior study demonstrating a recommendation to skip breakfast does not affect weight outcomes in patients trying to lose weight. Actually, many studies say don't skip breakfast, have breakfast, because when you skip breakfast, you end up eating more calories later in the day. That's what the studies have shown. So I don't know what study they're citing here, but all the other studies do say make sure you eat breakfast so that you can have the energy to eat less food later in the day. Although prescribed 12 to 8 eating window is likely more attractive and more amenable to long-term adherence, it might not be optimal for the metabolic advantages of time-restricted eating. So they admit 12 to 8 is probably not the ideal. In analysis of the secondary outcomes, we found a significant reduction in lean mass. So again, we talked about that with the muscle. All right, let's skip down to the strengths and limitations. Let's see what they admit were the good things they did in this study and the bad things they did in this study. And some of my commentary, let's see if it shows up in this section. The strength of the study is it includes randomization. I agree. That was a great strength. Easy to follow, real-world prescription-based intervention. Well, if the primary outcome was weight loss, I suppose if you're only testing the effects of intermittent fasting on weight loss, then you got that. But let's not pretend like that fasting is the only thing in all the things that they did there that had an impact on the weight. If you're blinded to the physical activity and blinded to the number of calories and energy intake, blinded to the macronutrient composition of the food, which all of those things directly impact your weight, how do you say that you tested intermittent fasting? What you tested was a moving target of intermittent fasting because you didn't know what each individual did. If they did, now that would be interesting data. It's not in this study. Tell us what they actually ate. Tell us how many calories they actually had. Tell us how much exercise they did. Tell us all the full Ring details of how their sleep was, because that also impacts how hungry you are the next day, what you eat, cravings. I've done some Jimmy Rants on that before, that when you have a crappy night's sleep, it actually pushes you to eat crappy garbage. So maybe they white-knuckled it to that noon, and then at noon they just went a pig fest and had all the junk food they could put in their mouth. Although there were statistically significant weight loss in the time-restricted eating group, there was no difference between the groups. This indicates participation in a weight loss study alone, even in the control group, is sufficient enough to lead to short-term weight loss. So they both lost weight. So they're saying, well, because they were in a study, they knew they were being studied, and so therefore they had motivation to want to lose weight. Maybe. A limitation is, here's the limitations. We do not have self-reported measures of what they ate. Yeah, no kidding. Huge confounding variable. Although we did not measure calories, mathematical modeling of changes in energy intake suggests that calorie intake did not significantly differ between groups. How would you know that? How would you know if you didn't track? How would you know if there wasn't a difference between the groups? And again, why are we looking at the calorie difference? I know that's what researchers like to do. I'm less interested in the calorie differences and more interested in that composition of the food. Because if you had somebody that's a real food eater, that's going to be a far cry from a person who's a junk food eater. But they didn't parse that out. We did not measure changes in protein intake, because we know protein actually directly assists with weight loss as well, especially when you get adequate amounts. Given the loss of the muscle, they surmised that there was a decrease in protein consumption in those eating time restricted. So not only did they not eat for 16 hours in the intermittent fasting wing, they ended up eating less protein. I would argue that if you're going to intermittent fast, the very first foods you break that fast with is fat and protein. If you're not breaking a fast with fat and protein, your body is depleted of those things that the fat and protein give you. That's the very first foods you should be eating after you end a fast of any length. Intermittent fast of 16 hours, an extended fast of 5 to 7 days, eat fat and protein. Priority. That is the first thing. Because you haven't been eating any food at all, your body needs essential amino acids. Your body needs essential fatty acids. It don't need no carbs. There is no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. And so that, if they ended up eating less protein, yet another confounding variable as to why they got the results they got. The DEXA analysis of lean mass did not factor in muscle hydration, so it is possible that changes in hydration can confound it. Yeah, if they didn't drink as much water or drank more water, it changes all of that, you guys. So before the DEXA scan, they tried to control that issue. They had the participants fast for more than 12 hours and to go to the bathroom just before they had the DEXA. The change in lean mass in the time-restricted eating group was much greater than the loss of body water, so it's unlikely the differences were from muscle hydration. In conclusion, and I'm not going to go over it again, they think intermittent fasting is useless. They think it didn't really provide any benefit. And I say, with my analysis here today of this study, they did it all wrong. They left these poor people flailing at doing all kinds of protocols. They didn't control for the variables that would impact weight. And if your primary outcome is weight, and you allow them to directly impact that weight loss that would happen through the kinds of foods they would eat, the amount of foods they would eat, the physical activity or lack thereof that they would do, that just can't be ignored. So you can look at a headline all you want. Time-restricted eating does not work for fat loss, does not work for weight loss, and it would be 100% dead wrong. So some people were asking, I noticed some of the questions coming in, who paid for the study. So I'm looking for that. I'm not seeing who paid for it. I know UC San Francisco did the study. It shows the different people that obtained the funding, but it doesn't say who funded it. It looks like there are some of the researchers work for the breath ketone company Keto, which I didn't see anything in here as to how if they tested ketones. So I don't know what Keto would be paying for this study for, but really, really fascinating. When you dig deeper into these studies, you learn a lot more about them than what the headlines say in the news reporting. And I hope this was helpful to you guys here today. I definitely want to see what you think about this. Welcome in, welcome in. We're going to go over here to Instagram, then to Facebook, finally to YouTube. Thank you guys for being here today on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, you like what I do here, definitely go fund me over at JimmyRants.com. We've got a PayPal link where you can make a one-time donation, or a Patreon link if you want to be a monthly subscriber and support my work. Thank you guys. Jack says, I love fasting. I'm at 83 hours fasting right now. Yep. Martha says, I'm starting a 48-hour fast later today. This is so timely. Awesome. You can easily down 4,000 calories of cookies in an 8-hour window. Back in the day, Jax, if you'd have given me Oreo double stuff, like unlimited amounts of that, I could probably down 10 to 15,000 calories worth of those things back in the day. So you're right. If they don't control for that, how can that not be a confounding variable? Joshua says, sounds like this study is showing the success of intermittent fasting. Exactly. If they ate junk food, and despite eating the junk food, which would normally make them gain weight under any auspice, and they still lost 2 pounds over a 3-month period. That's success. People who aren't used to IF are usually eating a lot of food in that 8 hours, especially with no cap on calories. Exactly. Jack says 24 hours is nothing for me. Yeah, a lot of people, and Dennis says exactly easily 18 for me. When you're keto, you're so in tune with your body. It was one of the things I put in my book, Keto Clarity, that one of the telltale signs that you're doing keto well is that you just spontaneously start intermittent fasting. And so if you spontaneously, without even thinking about it, just go 16, 18, 24 hours without eating, that's a clear sign you're very well keto adapted. And why they wouldn't have them go on a ketogenic diet first, that would be the interesting study. Put people on a ketogenic diet 4 weeks leading into the study. Then the control group would be, okay, keto people, just stay keto. And then the other group, which is the time-restricted eating group, that could be the intermittent fasting group, and have them eat 16-8 with keto. That would be an interesting one. Can you get more benefit of weight loss? Both groups would obviously lose weight, but can you get more weight loss with the combination of keto and fasting? The problem is the keto eaters would end up fasting as well because they're so satisfied on the food. So maybe it wouldn't show a whole lot of difference between the groups. We need people who know what they're doing to do that study. Well, yeah, it's unfortunate. These researchers, I think they're just dying to do any research at all, especially of a hot topic like fasting, that they're willing to do it sloppily designed. But you're right. We do need people that know what they're doing. Rachel says this study is so silly. Well, it's incomplete. I think it's a good idea to test intermittent fasting, but if they could have asked me, how could I do this study in the worst possible way, I don't think I could give them any more recommendations than what they actually did. Every step of the way, from the meal timing to the complete obliviousness to what they were eating in the eating window, to the self-reported data from at home, and then, yeah, I mean, it was just fraught with so many confounding variables. And the funny thing is, the cohort, the part of the study where the 50 people that came into the local area and had all that, that's where they saw the most profound difference. Those people lost 6 pounds compared to 1 pound in the control group. So what did those people locally do? Did they eat better in their eating window? And that's a 6 times the amount of weight loss in the intermittent fasting group compared to the control. They didn't make a big deal about that because the totality of all of them showed that. And we didn't see a breakdown. Were the people insulin resistant? Did we see, the older population? Because we saw it was younger people all the way to older people. So who struggled the most in losing weight? Who was the person that lost the most weight? Who was the person that maybe gained weight? But the average was what they shared in the study, but we don't know the individual data. I would love to parse all that out and say, well, participant number 25 gained 12 pounds. Well, what did he do? Or participant number 37 lost 15 pounds in the 3 months. Well, what did that person do? We don't have that data. Joshua says the more nasty artificial sweeteners can alter your gut bacteria and increase your diabetes risk. Yes, we have said as much many times. Joshua says, is 12 weeks long enough to start helping people with the health benefits that lead to weight loss? Well, that's the thing, Joshua. Their primary outcome was weight loss, but I would argue what you're saying here, that if they're trying to do weight loss, it ain't intermittent fasting you should be testing. Maybe extended fasting, but not intermittent fasting. And so the thing is, intermittent fasting is something you can do on a daily basis, although there is an argument, this is another flaw in the study, there is an argument that if you eat the same fasting window every single day, that your body gets used to it and you don't respond, which is why maybe one of the things they could have done was switch up the fasting schedule. On Monday, do the 16-8. On Tuesday, do OMAD. On Wednesday, do an alternate day fast where you skip that day and you go to eat the next day. On Thursday, then you go back to like maybe an 18-6. On Friday, you do a 20-24 fast. And then you fast over the weekend, 48 hours. You see how you mix it up? And that would probably have shaken up and done more weight loss had they done it that way. If your primary outcome is weight loss, you need to set them up to succeed. And what they did in this study was they set them up to fail. All right, thank you, Instagram. Let's pop over here now to my Facebook page. What's up, Facebook? Thank you guys for being patient. Tracy says intermittent fasting is the only way I've seen any weight loss. It gives me more energy for some reason. It does. It does. And that's just not anecdotal either. A lot of people have seen that. And it has a lot to do with calming down your hormonal system. Because when your hormones are out of whack, it takes away energy because your body's desperately trying to get you into a state of homeostasis so things calm down again. So when you don't eat food for a period of time, your pancreas gets a break, all of your organs gets a break. Everything on the inside of your body gets a break. So that's why you get more energy. Bonnie says, I'm glad you're taking on this article. Yeah, somebody told me about it and I was like, oh yeah, I already saw it. And I was all over this. By the way, I did see where Jason Fung chimed in about this. Again, he's my co-author on The Complete Guide to Fasting. His take on it was they didn't fast for long enough for weight loss. If their primary outcome was supposed to be weight loss, 16 hours doesn't do it. He said it has to be at least a 24-hour fast over a period of time in order to see results. But he would agree with me that you would probably want to change up the fasting protocol and keep your body guessing. That is where the magic of fasting would take place. Or an all-out extended fast from 5 to 7 days and see how that goes. And then the cumulative effects of that over time. I bet if they replicated the same time period, 12 weeks, and they put people on a 3-day fast once a week, and then let them eat ad libitum the rest of the week, but a 3-day fast once a week for that period of 12 weeks, it would have been a vastly different response. If they had done a 7-day fast, 3 7-day fasts, one each month throughout the study, then that would have been a vastly different response in the weight loss. They did the wrong fasting protocol, I contend. Of course, I also eat clean and exercise with my fasting. That makes the difference. It does, Tracy. It does. Kira says, I like to fast for 20 hours and eat within a 4-hour window. Yeah, a lot of people do like that regimen. Did this study not actually teach patients how to actually fast? From what I saw, there was no instruction. It would have been cool if they gave them all a copy of the Complete Guide to Fasting so they could learn more about this. But I guess they were trying to keep them blind to fasting because they were trying to test it. Maybe that's part of the randomized process is don't give them any more information than they need. Melissa says, today is my 5-year keto-versary, maintaining over 50 pounds lost at 56 years old. That is, or 55 years old. That's awesome. Congratulations, Melissa. Martha says, too many people still think a calorie is a calorie. Yeah, welcome to my world, Martha. I have been fighting that one for 15 plus years. It's a tough one. Martha says, I work second shift most days, so an early eating window works for me, so I don't have to think about eating at work. That's true. I know a lot of people, I know some medical doctors that are keto, that they literally do fasting all throughout the day that they're working. And they can get into office at like 8 o'clock and leave at like 6 o'clock. And then they're eating, a meal at night and then a meal in the morning before they go to work. But then they have that huge block where they're working all day and they're able to push through it because of keto. Martha says this study was totally flawed, but people won't read as far as you do. Well, that's why we have Jimmy Rants. That's why I created this show, so we can dig deeper into these kind of studies so you can get beyond the headline and see what the study actually shows. Jenny says, I appreciate your skills in helping us digest this. You're welcome. I am more than happy. I'm not the most scientific person in the world, but I definitely know how to communicate and I definitely know this subject matter, and especially this subject matter I wrote a whole book about. So I've done a lot of extensive research on fasting, and they really effed this one up royally. Thank you, Facebook. Let's pop over here now to my YouTube channel. What's up, YouTube? See what you have to say on this one. Harpsy says, fasting works in my case. My numbers prove it. Good for you. That is so awesome. Intermittent fasting is awesome. Being fat adapted does make it work better. Yep. Harpsy says, I stopped eating at work. I enjoy my car stereo at lunch and clean my car. I stay busy and active. That's true. Craig says, losing weight is only one marker or benefit of being in a fasted state. Autophagy and an increase in energy aren't talked about enough. Oh, you don't listen to me very much then, because I talk about autophagy and increased energy all the time with fasting. PJB said, or RJB, I'm going to get it right here in a minute. PJB says I eat about 7 or 7:30 in the morning, and then again between 11 and noon, and then I fast the rest of the day. I love it. That's awesome. Do they know who paid for the study? Yeah, I didn't see in there who specifically paid. You could definitely look it up. Again, let me give you the title of the study so you can look it up. Maybe you guys can find it. But Effects of Time-Restricted Eating on Weight Loss and Other Metabolic Parameters in Women and Men with Overweight and Obesity. It's called the TREAT, T-R-E-A-T, randomized clinical trial. And it was published in the September 28, 2020 issue of the journal JAMA Internal Medicine was the name of that journal that you can go look it up in. It irks me when they have studies that consider 500 calories a fasting day. Yeah, no, definitely not. This one at least was legit fasting. April says 16-8 works for me, or worked for me a long time ago, not this year when I gained 28 pounds during COVID, now premenopausal. Should I combine it with keto, weight loss on hyperdrive? Yeah, keto will definitely help, but give yourself a break in 2020. I've talked about this on many Jimmy Rants. We have had confounding variables in weight this year because of the stress. Now, this study was conducted last year before COVID hit, but in the midst of COVID, all bets are off with weight loss. So give yourself a little bit of grace. She said, I lost 27 pounds in 1 month. That can happen because you can lose a lot of weight early on and then it levels out. All right. Currently on day 3 of my 5-day fast, and I think I hit my goal. You go. Way to go. All right, let's come back over here to Instagram, see if there's any final comments that came in. I think I saw a few. Anna Vins, for weight loss, it's better to switch up or to be consistent. Yeah, switching it up, I think it's a great way to do it, as I described a little bit earlier. How many people were in the study? So go back, Parkman, and re-watch the entire Jimmy Rants, because I've been on here for an hour and 20 minutes, and we talked all about the details of the number of people. It was just over 100 people, but go watch the replay. Parkman says, I just finished my 39-hour fast. So guys, when you see headlines that say things like intermittent fasting not effective for weight loss, now you've got a better perspective. You've got to dig deeper. You can't just look at a headline and think, okay, they've concluded, wow, it was a randomized controlled trial, so Jimmy tells us that's the best, and so I guess we got to believe it. Yes, they are the best, but when they're conducted well, and this one very clearly was not conducted well. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, you can engage live in the content. Go follow me right here. I'm on Instagram at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live. We are here Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So thank you so much for being here today. We also simulcast on Facebook and YouTube. Watch the replay right here on Instagram. We throw it up on IGTV as soon as this is over, so be sure to watch it on replay. Also over on YouTube, we put the past episodes. Type in a keyword, Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. Today over on YouTube, we do have the video version of my Real Talk podcast interview with Sean Wells. You won't want to miss that one. So go watch that over on YouTube, or you can listen to it on the Real Talk Podcast, llvlc.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And then finally, pop on over to the official website for this show. It is jimmyrants.com. And while you're there, you can see all the past episodes there as well. And you can also support my work. So you like what I do here, definitely show me some love. Click on the Patreon link or the PayPal link, and a donation of any amount would be greatly appreciated. All right, guys, I am out of here for now. We will be back tomorrow with Ask Me Anything, 11 a.m. tomorrow. Ask me whatever questions you have. Friday is the day for that, and we will see you then. Bye.